Alrighty, welcome back to the Movie Well Marathon. I'm Andrew, and
And I'm Mac.
we are
Woo!
on a new marathon today, and we're doing a different kind of
Yeah.
marathon. What are we calling this one? The
Dreams that gave Mac nightmares.
okay, that doesn't
Or
really
movies that gave Mac.
roll off the tongue. The obscure fantasy marathon. That's
Obscure
what we're
fantasy, that'll
doing,
work.
and we
And
are
that's kind of what I've been calling it too, like the old forgotten fantasy
yes.
films. Mhm.
So, what is the connecting thread? There isn't one. Mac is the connecting thread. We're
I'm the
shaking it
connecting
up.
thread.
Yes.
You're gonna all experience secondhand the weirdness that I had when I was a kid,
Yeah.
just watching these films.
Uh-huh. And we're starting off with The Hobbit. Oh, yay, you
The
say.
Hobbit.
No, 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 no. The Hobbit 1977. The animated one, directed by Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin
hmm
Jr., came
hmm
out November
You know
27th,
these guys
1977.
from basically any classic Christmas Carol special.
Yeah, kind of got that vibe.
hmm
Starring no one you've heard of. Orson Bean, Don Messick, John Huston, Richard Boone, Paul Frees. I'm gonna stop there because a bunch of guys, bunch of old guys. All
The
right.
names that people might know would be Arthur Rankin Jr., Jules, and I think Glenn Yarbrough kind of made a name for himself out of this. He's the guy who came up with the theme song that largely shows up intermittently throughout like the different scenes and bits of the
So
story.
he's the one I have a bone to pick
You
with.
don't
I'm
like
sorry.
it?
No. Anyway, okay.
Come on.
This was your idea, so you start us off. Why did we watch this one?
Okay, so this was definitely a library pick when I was a kid, where we went to the library and we were just like, let's just pick some things. And I'm pretty sure this is one of those situations where I was like, what is this? Because the artwork on the cover was very intriguing. And Matt was like, oh, The Hobbit, that's a good one. We should get that one. But none of us had ever seen it before. And I was watching it while my parents were busy, like socially, whatever. It was put on to distract the kids from what was happening. None of the other kids were distracted. I was enthralled. This was great cinema. It's okay. So here's the deal. It's not that actually great of a film in terms of like a good adaptation of the story or different things, but I do find it to be like overall a vibe. I enjoy
Uh
the music. I really enjoy the animation.
huh.
I think that it's a fun, like, very short retelling of The Hobbit. I think it's so funny. There are multiple times in the story when they're like, and we got the bare bones of what happened at this location, and we need to move on for
Uh huh.
time's sake. So we're just gonna skip to the next bit. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like they play a little bit of music and they skip to the next interesting bit. And I think that's funny. I like it.
Fair enough.
I don't know. It was the first encounter I had with this story, with
Mhm,
Bilbo Baggins, with the Ring, with Sting, Gollum, all the
mhm.
characters, Gandalf and whatnot. And it just sort of like lingered in the back of my memory for a really long time, to the point where that's what kind of kicked off my interest in like the Lord of the Rings in general and whatnot. So
Yeah. I can absolutely understand how a child would watch this and like it and be attached to it. It's got that
mhm.
vibe of a movie you found in a chest under a staircase in a
Yes.
basement, and you played it every now and then, or it was just playing in the background at your grandparents' place. It's yeah, it's from 1977. It looks like somehow it's from 1932. Um, I this is the first time I've seen it all the way through, other than
Mm.
one particular scene that made me laugh until I had stitches. So I don't have as fond an opinion as you do, shall we say? But at the same time, given what it is, it's not like I have like a bad opinion of it. It's like it's The Hobbit. It's pretty straightforward, and I like. I think I could find charm in the animation style. The quality is definitely
Mm.
not, exactly
Yeah.
remarkable. Um, I don't like the style. I said you could find charm in it.
Oh, really?
I said you could find charm in it.
I like it.
I like Gandalf. I think all the other creatures are there's a lot of artistic liberty with some of them. Partner walked by while I was watching it and thought the elves were the goblins because the elves look like goblins. Um, I
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
There's actually a lot to that in general, like fantasy lore about how to depict elves appropriately, especially when it comes to Middle Earth conversations, because if you know the lore of Middle Earth, wood elves should look distinctly different from like the elves that you find in Rivendell.
sure.
Um,
Those ones are blonde. River elves are brunettes. It's so obvious. I understand there's
eh,
probably stuff about the book that I'm missing too. But it was a little funny that the elf
mhm.
king looks like Yoda. Um,
Yeah, no, I do get that. It is interesting to see someone have a take on the elves that isn't just like fully grace and beauty. It looks a little bit like a
because
gnarled woodland creature.
Elrond was fine. I'm digging the
Hmm.
Crown of Stars. That's really dope.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've not read The Hobbit, so I'm coming from an even less educated spot. I've seen all the movies, and my first exposure to The Hobbit was the Game Boy game. I played through that, and that's how I'm familiar with staying in Gandalf and the trolls and everything. Um, so at this point I find myself a little annoyed that my Hobbit movie options are too much filler or not
Hmm.
enough because
Uh-huh.
again, if you watch this as a kid, probably slaps, you know? It's adventure after adventure
Hmm.
after adventure. This just puts in perspective how much of the Hobbit is escaping from things over and
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again. Um I do not particularly love the songs because again, and I again, you don't think this when you're a kid. I understand,
Hmm.
but the songs in The Hobbit, man, the Misty Mountain song that Thorin sings on over the mantle in the Hobbit hole, dramatic,
Hmm.
eerie, spooky. Every song in this is like a I don't know, it's not as good, shall we say. I don't know how to articulate because I don't know enough about music.
Should I tell you some things about this music
I,
and the songs here?
sure.
Okay, I'm not trying to convince you of any particular thing, but this is with my knowledge of the book and the histories of this and whatnot. So the only song that was written for, or I guess the only lyrics that were written for this animated version was that theme song about the adventure. Everything else in the movie, I'm pretty sure everything else in the movie that rhymes comes straight from Tolkien's
Yeah,
Hobbit.
I
And
had a
that's because
feeling.
Tolkien was a massive history nerd and really appreciated the fact that people carried their stories through song and replicated that in his epic fantasy history. Because that's basically what it is. It's a history. However, the Hobbit is specifically designed for his kid. It's supposed to be a
Mm.
children's book. Is Tolkien's writing all that accessible to kids? That's debatable. I think you can read it in middle school and enjoy it a lot.
I
It still
think
kind of get
Roald
that sort of like
Dahl was a little
childlike
more
wonder.
successful in that attempt.
Sure, sure. But like again, like the vibe of The Hobbit is supposed to be kind of like a nighttime story. So the fact that it's a little bit episodic, the fact that it's a little bit simpler, the fact that it follows a character that's a little bit more grounded and believable than the big characters from Lord of the Rings, all that is stuff that I consider to be strengths of the film. And as good as a lot of the choices are in the Hobbit trilogy, which I'm kind of a bit of a defender for that trilogy, even though I'm fully aware of its weaknesses. People are way too critical of that trilogy.
Mm.
So I like that trilogy. But I like that there's also this alternative take of The Hobbit as a simple story designed for kids. You know, like this animated version fills yeah, that animated version just kind of fills the original place that I think the original story was supposed to have. I am torn on how I feel about like considering that. I feel like this as an adaptation only really works if you're willing to sort of surrender a lot of it. I think I also approach this with the knowledge that I'm pretty sure this is like a small budget project.
Oh
Like
yeah, you kind of get that vibe.
The Hobbit was in the public domain at the time that this was created, so they didn't have to pay for licenses.
Oh.
It seems to be largely created by like roughly 3 or 4 people, and then they just brought in some people to voice act for it.
Mm.
Um, There is the studio that made a lot of the animation was actually a Japanese studio. They basically sort of
Mm,
outsourced it. From what I understand, according to the Wikipedia page, those guys actually, those animators, the studio went defunct. But the animators from that team reformed into Studio Ghibli. So like,
really? That's cool.
yeah. So there's a weird history there with like the animation style.
So they became Studio Ghibli. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what Wikipedia said. I did not check further than that. I was just curious about some things because I felt like I recognized the style a little bit, and I do. It's from all the Christmas Carol
Hmm.
specials you've ever seen. All like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa
Right.
Claus Coming to Town, all of them. Um, but yeah, so that's just a little bit about like I feel like the making of this was largely sort of like a passion project. They
Hmm.
clearly didn't expect to make a lot of money out of it. They didn't spend a lot of money on it. You can tell that. And so I like to think of it as sort of like budget Hobbit, but I do really like this art style and the I mean the animation itself is a little bit rough, but like the
Yeah.
watercolor backgrounds are
No,
really
yeah, like there's
pretty.
there's a lot of cool artistic stuff. I think I,
Hmm.
I, I think the for the most part, like the background characters are nightmare fuel, very much like Planet of
Hmm.
the Apes, especially the Lake Town boys. I personally don't like Bilbo. I think his face is dumb and his hairstyle is stupid, but that's just me.
Aw,
And
so mean.
yeah, I think Smaug looks awful. I hate everything about Smaug.
Smog looks he looks pretty bad. I don't really mind the color or the proportions, but I don't like the cat face. And
I
I
don't
feel like
I don't like the
yeah.
long, skinny neck and the it's a patasaurus with wings with a cat head and fur. That's a lot of very strange artistic choices for a dragon. Not feeling it. Not
I
feeling
agree.
it.
However, the dripping fire and then like the way this like when he breathed fire, there were like swirls in it. The
Okay.
the art style for fire in this is
Yes.
really
If
cool.
the best thing though about your dragon is his drool, you failed. That's just.
Sure.
I didn't
Yeah.
like. You see,
I'm not arguing that. I'm
you
just saying there are parts of this that are
yes,
really
but
cool
see,
if
you
you
point
ignore
out.
the parts that are kind of bad.
Okay, yeah, but you can't just do that. And you point out that the
Yes,
fire
you can.
looks cool when you see it visually, which is great.
Mhm.
I noted though that there's no sound effect to the fire. If there is, it's very, very
Yeah.
light. When he burns the armor, which is a cool sequence when it to see it melt, animation wise, it's
Hmm.
fun. But it's like there's no difference between him talking and him breathing fire. Like they don't add like a sound effect to it. It was a little strange
Hmm.
because they add a
Hmm.
sound
I didn't
effect.
notice that.
They add a sound effect to Bilbo putting on and taking off the ring. A whole wow, wow, wow. But like we couldn't add a when he's breathing fire. No, okay,
No, that'd
fine.
been too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know how you feel about musicals. I felt there was way too much
Hmm.
music in this. The same song popping up every 5 minutes got old really fast. And I think the
The
charm
only
of
complaint
his, I just like the way they sing. I don't know what it's called, but like the
Mhm.
like it's like rolling every word. The charm of
Yeah,
that wore
the
off.
vibrato.
Sure, thank you. I knew there must be a word for it. The charm of that wore off within 10 seconds for me personally. I was not digging that. And the fact that I assume it's the same voice actor as Bilbo because it sounds like it. So I feared for a second that this was going to be a musical. I was like, she did
Hmm.
not just trick me into a musical.
I would, but not this. Well, I mean, okay. I do feel like this is actually kind of a musical at heart because a lot of the exposition,
Uh
well, not a
huh.
lot of it, maybe like 25% of the exposition is
Comes through
carried in the
song.
music.
Right.
If you're not paying attention to what the singers are saying, you
Hmm.
actually do miss some things. And that's just a part of like the breakneck speed at which the story travels
Yes,
here.
that too.
And the reason it travels so quickly is because there's so much content in The Hobbit, and really all of it kind of is important for the character development, what the kind of building of the group, and Bilbo coming around and learning the skills he needs to face Smaug and all that stuff. But it's all very abbreviated in this film. To be fair, if we're looking at it like a kid's film, I'm not sure that the kids would really appreciate the like heavy introspective interpersonal stuff that goes on if you give
Hmm.
it time. But having Bilbo just like put on the ring and take a nap during the
I was
Battle of
gonna
the Five
say.
Armies.
I was gonna say. I think honestly, there's in some ways, even though it's hella rushed, and if you actually looked at this as
Mhm.
a real movie, which you can't, because yeah, but if you looked at this as a real movie for a second, Bilbo's like arc, I think, is better than the live action ones, because the idea of
Mm.
him being like a leader and pushing the dwarves to continue and to defend them and so on and so forth, like he has drive in this
Mm.
animated one, whereas the Martin Freeman one, he's a little more. It takes longer to get to a point where he's, you know, moving himself forward, because the last one just becomes Thorin's movie, but that's neither here nor there.
Mhm.
There's motivation and drive and confidence in this Bilbo, whereas there isn't any other. And then yeah, out of nowhere, it's like, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm just gonna nap under this tree and continue to lie about it. It's like, oh yeah, I was knocked out. You know, it's gosh, you know, war, man, it really gets you, as he's got friends dying, crawling towards him. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you're injured. No shit, Bilbo. There's a war going on.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it's supposed, because like Bilbo in the books, it's a big part of the story that while going on the adventure made him a more resilient and more adaptable person, it was overall probably good for him. The moral of the story is actually that the life he was living before is the life that everybody should strive for. Like, the main reason Bilbo goes on the quest, and this is something that the trilogy does largely correctly, the main reason that Bilbo is supposed to go on the quest with the guys is he feels bad that they don't have a home. He looks around at all his nice, comfortable space, and he's like, they don't have this. They are missing this, and they're asking me to go help them get this back. I can do that. And then he goes on this quest, and once they get to the mountain, the problem is the dragon sickness sets in. Thorin and crew get really greedy. And so when Bilbo becomes very strong, like anti-conflict at the end there, it's actually really important, because he's like, what you're fighting for is not important. What you're fighting for isn't worth it. I'm not going to sign up for it. But the way this animated movie depicts that makes him just look like a terrible friend, because he
Kinda.
does care about these guys. He's saved their lives several times by
Mm-hmm.
now. He cares for them, and he, instead of helping them solve their problem, he's just takes a nap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's kind of rough.
Yeah.
That's not a great choice.
See, I think the live action one actually accomplishes that message better than this one, because the fact that they keep playing that same song, talking about again and again and again and again and again that you got to stop looking out the window, you got to stop dreaming, you got to get out there and do your thing. Like, it's every 5 to 7 minutes. It's laying it on pretty thick that the way Bilbo was living was actually not the way you should be living. But like the live action one has that moment with Gandalf where he says something similar, like the song. But then Bilbo has that moment where he says in dialogue that the reason I'm here for you guys is because I miss my home and you don't have one. And then we see, you know, the darks, not that there's a light side, the bloody dark side of war, and the goal is for everyone to go home. But I think again, Lord of the Rings doubles down on the other message where everyone, you know, Bilbo wants to see mountains and Frodo ends up leaving and all. Yeah, so like the message I think is a little bit muddled here.
Yeah.
Just as a
I
whole,
think that's because
like, at its core, I don't really
there's
know what we're trying to say.
there's a tear between the epicness of the world that Tolkien has created and the message of Tolkien's story. He, I think in the books, it carries across a little bit more strongly than in others, because it happens like every time there's a significant loss in the books. There are characters who are very openly lamenting the fact that they're even in this situation. They're like, if only I could just go to a place that is peaceful and like live a peaceful life. Some of them want to raise a family, some of them just want to have a good time. None of the characters who are heroes in Lord of the Rings actively enjoy the violence that they participate in. But because of the situation that we've been given and the fact that we as humans, especially in cinema, tend to glorify violence, there's this element of epicness. And like, again, Tolkien being inspired by his experiences in the war, there is a side to a hero that is violent, and he used that side in his heroes. It's just about protection rather than aggression.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with the Battle of the Five Armies is that every single army has aggression in its bloodstream. Because, like, the dwarves do not need all that gold. A lot of that gold didn't come from their haul. In fact, the reason the elves are there, not mentioned in this movie, but the reason the elves are there is because there is something taken from them in that haul that they want returned to them. Like, there's a whole bunch going on. Like, the reason that Smaug decimated Lake Town is because the dwarves got their stuff back. And now Lake Town can't rebuild unless they have some sort of resources. So they very reasonably go and ask the dwarves to help them out. And Thorin is all dragon sick and greedy. Point is, it's a very complicated story in terms of morals. You know, it reflects a little bit of the real world in that. But I do hear that there's definitely a clash, especially in Bilbo's story, about whether or not going on an adventure is the right thing to do for your moral growth, or if just staying home is the right goal and everything. Because they don't seem super compatible overall, especially with the fact that he wants to go out on his own in Lord of the Rings. Although, again, I do sort of justify that with the fact that the ring has worn him down over 80 plus years of his
fair.
life. And so he doesn't really have the clarity of mind that he might have had when he was a little bit younger.
Fair.
Yeah.
I do think it's a shame that a part of my issues, I would say, come from the budgetary restraints. Because there are some sequences that I do think would be better if they were just a little longer. Because the movie's only like an hour and 18 minutes, give or take. And so like the opening I thought was funny because it's just you are a burglar. What? No, I'd honestly, Mr. Wizard Man, sir, if you don't mind me saying, I'd prefer not. Shut up! You're doing it anyway. Eat shit. And that's basically the opening. And then
that is
the riddle sequence I think could be longer because I see there were some things from the live action ones I think I've taken for granted until I watched this movie, because there's a tension that's built with the riddle scene in the live action one that is just not here. The style of this version of Gollum, Smeagol, visually I think is interesting. He's got a lot of neck hair, and he is spooky, but it's don't love it.
The scene with the Golem is actually a really good one to compare between live action and this version, I think, because, or even in the book too, because if I remember correctly, the riddle sequence goes on for a long time in the book. It's not just like the 4 or 5 that they trade in the live action movie, or the 4 or 5 that they trade in the animated one.
It's like 2 each in the animated one. Yeah.
It goes on for a while, and I think there's even sort of like a bit of like a cut where they jump between Bilbo's perspective and the dwarves. And I think and it's been a long time since I've read it, but from my memory, it's supposed to be implied that Bilbo and Gollum have been at it for a while. It's like a true sort of like battle of wits situation. And I think that's what the animated version was trying to convey with that whole like convert into song bit. But I also think it has a lot to do with the fact that the tension of that scene can only be carried in a performance. And we already talked about the fact that budget is small. So getting a riveting performance between 2 roughly animated characters is just not something that you're going to be able to accomplish. So they realistically like shaved it down a little bit for the budget that they had. I think a lot of the tension in the live action one, we have to thank the actors for it. Like Andy Serkis and Martin Freeman are killing it in that scene. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like, well, I was going to say if it was like their chemistry test or whatever, but he was going to be Gollum regardless.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It just like that's probably the audition scene they use, because that's the scene that everybody knows from The Hobbit is the riddle scene between him and Gollum where he gets the one ring. And I don't know, I agree that this version of it is weakest. I feel like there are several times, particularly with the one song they use over and over again, that the tone is just a little off. Like they use that sort of cheerful music between scenes for most of the film, but transitioning into Mirkwood, it feels particularly off. Like, they're very much Gandalf just left the party again. They got a bunch of warnings to stay on the path. Everybody who knows the story knows they're about to go encounter the spiders. Like, this is one of the darkest parts of the journey, and we're like, and we're off on an adventure singing a happy little song. And if we're gonna break from the mold for one of these transitions, just play some ominous music in the background as they're walking in the trees.
Instrumental,
it's all you need to do.
I don't need the lyrics every single time. I just don't. Uh, yeah. On that note, Mirkwood, the spiders, way too goofy. They've got like
They look like they're from a different movie.
they do. They have like rabbit ear antenna,
Mm-hmm.
which spiders don't have, and they talk. Interesting, interesting choice.
I don't mind the talking. I think the talking makes sense in the style of film that they were trying to do, especially the kind
Uh,
of talking that the
I
spiders were
think it'd be
doing.
spookier if they looked like spiders and they talked, kind of like Aragog in Spider-Man 2, instead of them having
Mm-hmm.
cartoon rabbit faces and fangs and talking. They're almost more articulate than the trolls, which is a little bit weird.
True.
That was another thing. Again, I wish we had more time with. I like the troll sequence in the game
Mm-hmm.
and in the live action because there's like, for one, there's humor in it, and there's
Mm-hmm.
also there's wit in making them talk until the sun comes up. And this one, it's almost implied that Gandalf makes the sun come up early
Yeah.
because he's a
Mm-hmm.
god, I guess. Um, it's also funny
No, I
that
agree.
they're like the dwarves again, I don't know how exactly it is in the book, but the animated one, it implies that these trolls, these dummies, uh, after the dwarves have a head start at night in the forest, all of them get caught, apparently very easily, and these guys are gonna go deal with a dragon. My faith in them is cut in half, I would say, immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just little things I think not only live action versus animated are different, or something's moved, or something is said. It's the time because it ends up cutting what's the saying? Like they're cut off at the knees for all these sequences that
Mm-hmm.
require just a little more, just a couple more minutes for it to really give the
Well, and
oomph that it's supposed to give.
I think the troll sequence, the first one, is actually really important for that because the troll sequence kind of like it's really tempting in general to, if you're short on time, cut the troll sequence just because it doesn't feel like very much super important happens. You can have them acquire the swords in Rivendell if you really need to, right? Um, but the troll sequence is actually really important in terms of like team building and character building. It's the first time that Bilbo has to encounter something dangerous, and it very quickly establishes him as someone who doesn't pick up a sword and fight so much as use his wits to sort
Mm-hmm.
of trick him around. It also establishes him as like somebody who's very new to this because he does get the dwarves trapped kind
Mm-hmm.
of inadvertently. No matter how you set it up, that he's at least somewhat responsible for that situation. And he also is clever enough to get them out of that situation. So
Right.
like a lot of that sequence is actually really important for the general overall story, even though it doesn't feel like it accomplishes that much narratively. But doing it in brief almost made it worse than not doing it at all because you
Mm-hmm.
don't get that wit, that clever bit where they're just waiting to see the sun come up and then
Right.
Gandalf gets there just in time and makes the sun show up. The tension is sort of taken out of it when it's just, we got lucky, Gandalf showed up at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we got.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Gandalf, I don't love all of the extra Gandalf side quest stuff in the live actions. However, without it, he's kind of a dick because he's just
Yeah,
disappearing for
actually,
no reason.
so what's crazy about this is that's actually how the Hobbit is written. And I had kind of forgotten just through like the experience of watching the trilogy that that's how it felt. But Gandalf was not one of my favorite characters when I
Mm,
first started the series because to me he was just constantly flaking on his very important appointments
yeah,
with this band that he set off on a quest.
right.
And it just wasn't around. And
Uh
then
huh.
you read in The Lord of the Rings in the Council of Elrond bit, you learn what he was doing
Uh huh.
during that time and why he couldn't show up, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes things way better. He was dealing with a lot of very active situations while the dwarves are doing their basically side quest on Middle Earth to go
Mm-hmm.
get their mountain back, right? And but like it feels very much like Gandalf just isn't paying attention to this
Right.
group that he put together and set on a dangerous
It's
quest.
weird in a way to start with him because he ends up feeling like, if you'll pardon my stupid nerd brain, he feels like the Hulk in that he's not the guy you're supposed to rely, like in the Avengers, he's not the guy you rely on, he's not the guy you talk to, he's not the guy you follow. But then when you need that powerhouse in that moment, there's the Hulk. Then it goes away because you don't need him anymore. Then he comes back when you need him.
That actually is very similar, yeah.
Right, but like you don't often start an Avengers movie with the Hulk recruiting Iron Man and then just and then like, so it's a little strange for him to feel like, okay, here are our three characters that we're gonna follow this story with. We got Gandalf, we got Bilbo, we got Thorin. So like, well, actually, psych, bitch, no you don't, because Gandalf is gonna be here maybe, I don't know, when he wants, because he's a wizard and he shows up when he wants.
Yeah,
that's his thing. Like,
seriously, that is exactly how it feels reading The Hobbit itself. You're like,
bizarre.
where is he going?
Yeah.
That is so important.
That's weird.
Which is why I'm a bit of a defender for the trilogy, the live action trilogy, because a lot of people are like, why are we even watching this Gandalf stuff? They just want an excuse to bring back name characters and actors. They can, like, you know, revive the, you know, nostalgia or whatever. And in their defense, it wasn't not that, because they brought Legolas back when they really shouldn't have.
Right. I was gonna say, I don't mind the Gandalf stuff as much as I do the Legolas stuff.
Well, a lot of the stuff with Gandalf is pretty much straight from the books. Now, they took some interpretations and liberties with it because Gandalf doesn't really describe his full encounter with the necromancer and whatnot. But if you read just his account at the Council of Elrond, it's basically exactly what you see him do. He goes and meets up with Radagast. He talks with the council with Elrond and everybody, Galadriel and all that. That you can see the seeds of distrust being planted between him and Saruman. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that happen in that timeline as the dwarves and Bilbo are headed toward the Lonely Mountain that actually makes the fact that he's absent during those events feel a lot better. And it's not like you have time for him to do all of that during the Council of Elrond in the original trilogy. Those movies are long enough as it is. Right. So I actually really love that they included that bit with Gandalf and his little quest in the live action movies. And this movie reminded me how it feels when you don't get that context, because he's just a random, super powerful semi-jerk who, like, seems pretty wise and also apologetic, but randomly meets up with you, you know, hoping you were on time with your schedule and everything. That said, I do actually really like the visuals of Gandalf and his power in this movie. I feel like it makes him feel a little bit more wizardy. I like the fact that his flames are like blue and sort of unearthly, cool. And I like that lightning is associated with him in that regard, rather than just being sort of like a generic fire thing. I don't know. I like that aesthetic choice.
Oh yeah, I'll give you that. That's pretty good. There are some aesthetic things that are cool. I just don't think they last very long, and they're overshadowed by some of the weird things. Which I understand as well are largely subjective. So, you know.
I feel like I would never argue that this is the best version of this story. However, you turn off the lights. You start if you have a fireplace, you put a fire in, okay? You light some candles. You get a comfy blanket, maybe like a craft if you like knit or something, and you just sit and you put this on. It's an experience.
I think it's better if you take some substances and then put this on. Because then it's like way better.
Maybe. I don't know. Not tried it.
If you do a drinking game every time that one song starts, or every time they say a dwarf name, gonna get crazy in the introductions.
Yeah, that's fair.
Also,
I also find it really funny. I mean, it's not that much different in the original version or in the live action version, but when the goblins start attacking and the dwarves and the elves are like, "You, my truest brother and greatest friend."
I was like, what the hell?
Stand with me.
You guys were just shit talking to each other. Like, oh yes, of course, dwarf friend, you are my greatest ally. It's like, okay.
Well, and then Bilbo says, you know, Thorin was right. I simply do not understand war. I think that was intentionally supposed to be like funny. Like they're like
for sure,
saying blatantly untrue things to like ally each other. But it's still goofy.
Yeah. I do like that the five armies are way more clear in this version, because they are not clear in the Hobbit Battle of the Five Armies, because there's like 8 armies in that. just I find it hard to believe because of how they're portrayed so often that the goblins would be that big of a threat for anyone to deal with. That's something that
Mhm.
I just because I haven't read the book and I've seen like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. It's like the wood elves and an army of dwarves and an army of men struggling to go up against the goblins. I find absolutely hard to believe. I kind of get why they changed them to orcs in the live action, but I don't love it. I kind of wish they just would have been better about interpreting the goblins in a more
Mhm.
imposing way.
Yeah, no, that's it's been too long since I've read the book. There is some confusion in Tolkien's narrative, as in, we're not really sure if Tolkien himself was certain of which one he wanted to use, but he seems to bounce between like goblins and a couple other like creatures a little bit intermittently in the way that he
Mm.
describes them. We're not really sure which race this army is supposed to be, if I remember correctly. Because like when they're dealing with the goblins in the mountains, they're definitely goblins. But then like the fallout of that, there are other terms or words that he uses that indicate there's some other race happening that's also
Oh.
got issues going on. It's something that's technically like a continuity error, I believe.
Mm. Well, yeah. Well, we'll never know. Um, You mentioned before, with this one being more targeted at kids, perhaps. I think it's a bummer then to not include the guy that can turn into a bear, because as a kid, I would have loved that.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I think they probably plan to. That shot they show of Rivendell looks way more
I
like
thought
a
that was his. I thought
cottage.
that was his house because
Yeah.
I thought I missed some dialogue. It almost sounded like they were gonna skip Rivendell entirely, and I was like, "Whoa, what are we doing?
Uh-huh.
We're gonna really gonna
Yeah, no,
skip
there
him?"
was one line, oh, I can't remember what it said. It was something like, "It'd be a real shame to miss the elves singing under the stars, but," and then they should cut to them walking. And for a moment I was like, did we not go to
Yeah, I was like,
Rivendell? We
"Oh, we're
have to go to
skipping
Rivendell because the
Rivendell
moon
in this
rose.
version? My gosh!" And then they showed that cottage. It's like, "Oh, okay, cool. We're getting that bear guy." And then it's Elrond. It's like, "Oh, okay. I don't know what I'm talking about then. Clearly, so I'll just shut up."
It could have been an attempt to do a more realistic take on the elves and the halls of the elves, but it simply doesn't really stand with the lore because elves are supposed to create things that last forever, and a thatched
Hmm.
roof and sod walls just aren't going to get you there. So
Fair.
it needed to look a little bit more like a castle at the very least instead of just like a
Understandable.
village. So, which makes me think that they originally planned to include our bear guy
Hmm.
and just skipped over him. But they had the plans to include him had lasted long enough for them to draw up a cottage, and they're like, we don't really have time and effort for Rivendell, so we're just going to use the cottage instead.
Fair enough. Who knows? That might honestly be trivia worth looking into one day, but I'm not gonna right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see here. I thought it was interesting that I skipped over the Arkenstone completely. Um,
Yeah. They only had 10 minutes to do the Battle of the Five Armies, so
hmm,
I think that was just one of the things that fell to the wayside.
yeah. I like that they take out Smaug without using a child as arrow support. That's so dumb. So that's cool they didn't do
One of
that.
the dumbest things
Yeah,
I've ever seen
but
in a fantasy film. And there are a lot of dumb things in
yeah,
fantasy films.
the Bilbo and Smaug encounter though is just so silly. Smaug is so
I
silly.
love it.
It's so he's like, "Oh, I heard that you're not armored on the bottom side." He's like, "Oh, well, let me show you my belly like a cat again. Like, look at it. Can't you see it? It's great, isn't it? It's just so great. I'm super armored. I'm a super armored cat, lizard, giraffe." And his dialogue is just so he sounds like a dad waking up from a nap, which is not what I want from my dramatic dragon monsters.
I thought the voice was okay. I thought the voice was okay for the dragon.
I again, I'm because I'm thinking of what they do later, it's just so
Yeah.
anticlimactic. It's so
Hmm.
underdramatic. It's just not. It isn't cool. It isn't spooky. It's silly, and I want Smaug to be imposing.
No, the first conversation between Smaug and Bilbo is always a little bit goofy because basically Bilbo's like, I can't fight a dragon. That's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna even pretend that I can fight a dragon. But but there was a lore that maybe there was a missing scale. And if I could get him to show where there would be a missing scale, I can confirm whether or not there is a way to kill Smaug. And so he manipulates the conversation into revealing the weakness. If I remember correctly, that is from the book. I don't think the live action version does that. I think it's sort of a lucky thing where like the legend has been passed down in Lake Town, but Bilbo doesn't really confirm or deny it. They just see it in the sky and shoot him. And so like it felt weird to me that we spent basically no time in Lake Town and then did go the route of
The Black Arrow.
Bilbo looking for the weakness. Yeah, like the whole like Black Arrow bit. Like at the very least, include one very brief scene of Bard being like, we haven't heard anything from Smaug in a long time. The last time we heard of him was when someone apparently chipped a piece of his armor on the underside of his stomach. Yeah,
because they didn't include that. I wondered what Bilbo was looking for at first. It's like, what are you looking for? You haven't included any lore or info about there being a weakness. You're just gonna try to find one, I guess.
Well, and Tolkien also plays his favorite trick with the Hobbit being a newer and lesser known species in the high conflicts of Middle Earth. Like when he says, I've never smelled you before. That's meant to exactly. It's supposed to be that Smaug is genuinely curious a little bit because he doesn't have new experiences that often, and this guy's a little intriguing and clearly not dangerous. So what would he have to worry about? The hobbits again in Lord of the Rings, Sauron doesn't really know about them, so it becomes an easier way to get things done without him paying attention to them. So it's kind of a foreshadowing or parallel moment to the Lord of the Rings, which is fun. And again, I like the fact that Bilbo wins his conflicts in his situations through cleverness and wits rather than like combat.
Sure.
But the tension is perhaps a bit lacking in this interpretation of the scene, if only because they didn't tell us what he's looking for. We don't know what he's trying to accomplish.
Right. They're just sending him in. He's like, all right, go on, get in there. Go grab something.
Well, it's also supposed to be a big part of the story that nobody has seen Smaug, so they don't know if he's still alive or not. They're kind of sending Bilbo in hoping that the dragon is dead or just missing, and they can just walk back in and take the place. But it turns out, worst case scenario, Smaug is not only alive, he is awake and having an interaction, and then gets enough reason to go attack Lake Town, and all of the stuff happens.
Yeah. That bird as well, while we're on that weird bird that could talk.
The thrush should not be able to speak. That's so dumb.
Where does that come from?
That's the thrush is a part of the prophecy in the book, but I'm pretty sure the thrush does not speak to Bard in Lake Town. I'm pretty sure Bard just remembers.
Conversations like, oh, what? You can talk? A scale, you say? Bilbo Baggins?
Yeah.
What? Oh.
I don't think that's not. I'm pretty sure that's not how it happens in the book, because there are no talking animals in the Lord of the Rings. There are animals that are more intelligent than others, like Shadowfax, but there aren't really like. It's not like Narnia, where the animals are characters. So I'm pretty sure that was like a time-saving concoction made for this movie, but it's been forever since I've read the book, and I wouldn't totally disavow it. It's possible it happened.
The spiders talk, though.
I can't remember if that happens in the book or not, because I have a weird memory in my brain. I should just look it up. But I have a weird memory in my brain where it's one of those memories where I cannot remember if I made up this memory or if it's a genuine thing. But I thought I remembered that when Bilbo put on the ring, he could understand the spiders.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. But I don't remember if that's true or not. For some reason, a part of my brain went, yeah, when he puts on the ring, the spider's speech becomes understandable.
Strange.
But I can't remember that. I can't remember reading that. So I don't know where that came from.
I need to read all of it. It's a nerd thing I'm very behind on.
Yeah. It's a good one. Reading all of the trilogy is a task, but reading The Hobbit is a good warm-up for it. Like, you can tell whether or not you're going to make it through the trilogy if you can make it through Hobbit.
Fair enough. Well, as we come to the end of this one, do you have, like, a final thought? Like, you stand on your business and defend this one? Like, what makes you love this one in elevator pitch?
I like this film because it even though it's clearly a cheap version of the story, it feels like one of those storybooks that sort of retells like a movie or something, in the sense that it's the whole story that I can walk through more or less and remember the whole thing with under 2 hours. You're not going to get that kind of storytelling from anything else, in the sense that like this is fully The Hobbit, but like abridged and in at least somewhat or sometimes beautiful like art. So I'm in for it just because it's an easily digestible, beautiful version of The Hobbit. Is it perfect? No. Is it clearly a little bit cheap? Yeah. But it's still a good watch. I enjoy it.
Fair enough. You'd say it's a whale?
But yes, but only because I have a soft spot for it. I would not argue that this should be shown in classrooms for films.
For me, it's not a whale simply because of the music. I don't like the music. I don't like the consistency of the music. Otherwise, I see the charm. I see the fun. I see the charm as an old cartoon. I see the charm as an old Lord of the Rings cartoon or Hobbit cartoon. Like, it's got the barrel sequence and the dragon sequence, and it's got Lake Town and the trolls and the dinner and so on and so forth and whatnot and whatever, and the riddle sequence and what. Sure. I can't stand the songs that are consistent throughout.
I actually enjoy the commitment to the music because I do feel like that's a genuine take. That's why, Misty Mountain's Cold is in the live action trilogy, because the music actually is really important to the story.
And I get that, and I can respect that Tolkien respects that, and he includes that, and I think that The Hobbit crushes it. Again, I had taken for granted how well it incorporates the songs, like, because the Blunt the Knives and Bend the Forks is so good in the live action Hobbit, and the Misty Mountain Colds is a song you just listen to for fun. I think there's a spectrum of the soundtrack and songs conveying exposition, and on one end you have Tarzan, and on the other end you have this, because it feels clunky, it's not dramatic, it's just silly. I don't like it as much, and I know that's just me, but it's the exact opposite of how you enjoy it, how you appreciate it. I don't like it.
Yeah, this is a taste difference, I think, not necessarily a quality difference, because I would never argue this is the highest quality take on like a musical story, but I do like that it kind of feels like a folk song. I think that's cool.
I understand the intention of making it a folk song. I like it better when it's more of a eerie chant, almost like a spell, later on. Like, it's way cooler. I almost would argue that the coolest part of the entire Hobbit trilogy is when Thorin starts singing and the rest of the dwarves follow him. Because, like, how I feel about music and singing in general. The fact that one of the most badass characters of this entire franchise, his introduction is singing, and it's still cool. Like, that doesn't change my perspective of his badassery at all. Successful sequence. These ones, it's more, that's the other thing though, right? You like that it's like a folk song, but everything in this is like a folk song, and each of them is conveying a different mood, but the folk song conveys a consistent tone, and so for it all to be the same kind of music, the drama, the mystery, the excitement, all of it's lost because it's just the same kind of song.
I don't disagree. I think that's the cheap budget part of it, though. Like, if you're gonna pick one tone for this music to have, folksy would be the one tone.
Fine. I can't give it a whale, but I can't.
I don't expect you to.
Yeah, but I understand why it's not necessarily bad because of what it was trying to do and what people get out of it.
It's a nostalgic fave for me, in the sense that I would never claim this is the best interpretation of the story or like the best animated film of all time, but I will turn it on multiple times just because the vibes are good and the story. It reminds me of a complete version of the story, which is good.
Okay, I'll give you this. I like it enough that I wish there was a Harry Potter equivalent. I would love to see.
Really?
I would love to see, like this animation style, old timey weirdness. I'd like to see them do like. You probably couldn't do 8 movies, but to see like what they do with 2 or 3 in one, I'd be intrigued because that is my old magic story nostalgia bait.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to see how they interpret it.
That's an interesting take to sort of like apply this style to other fantasy stories and see how it goes. I'd be intrigued.
That being said, we're kind of at the end here. Do you want to tell the people though, are we doing the Lord of the Rings animated movie?
No, we're not doing that one. I don't have nostalgic fun.
The one where the animation is better because they did like, what is it, rotoscoping? They basically just drew after they filmed it.
Yeah, is it better? Is it better?
Yeah, that might be questionable.
Because it just sort of turns into the rotoscope at the end, doesn't it? Like there's not really animation on top of it.
Yeah, no, not really. Anyway, yeah, what no, don't tell us. It's a surprise next week. But yeah.
Are you sure?
Well, actually tell me because I don't know. It's obscure fantasy though. What is it?
It is. It's called The Last Unicorn.
The Last Unicorn. Cool. Never seen it. No idea what I'm getting into. Cool. Yeah, Last Unicorn is next. Heckin' yeah. Lots of fun, obscure fantasy. I'm ready for it. I'm strapped in. I am excited. This will be fun.
Okay. It's a good time. Again, these are all films that gave me nightmares, and yet I liked them as a kid. So.
What in this gave you nightmares?
I think it was the spiders.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. I think Gollum freaked me out more than the spiders, honestly.
Gollum was intriguing, but the fact that there were riddles allowed me to really intellectualize it, whereas the spiders were just creepy.
Spock. All right, but I think that's us for this week, so cool beans.
Yeah.
All right.
See you next time.
Bye, everybody.